Whether you are running around in life or running to catch this show, perhaps you've got an ultra marathon to run next year, you're in the right place. There are no runners up here. Welcome to UPlifT. Bonjour. Good day, good afternoon, good morning. Welcome to you, wherever you are around the world. We are live right now with three pretty amazing people. Just saying. I'm an agent of change. My name is Sarah Wade. I live in Perth, Western Australia. I love nature. I love art. And I love talking to people about what really sparks them. So we've got, as usual, my beautiful co-host joining us from Calgary in Canada, Mr. Neil Thrussell.
There is no running in my life right now because it's damn cold. My name is Neil Thrussell, 3 times international best-selling author, life coach, and I love to inspire people to live a life on fire. And I'm really excited to have our guest today. Back to you, Sarah.
Joining us today, we've got an elite performance coach, Patrick Farnan. Welcome, Patrick. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you both. Thank you for having me on.
Such a pleasure. Hey, I'm curious to know, when it comes to running, have you always been a runner?
No, it's surprising. I haven't always been a runner. It's been a kind of a thing that grew on me over time. Like, as a kid growing up, I was always kind of that chubby kid, like always a little bit overweight compared to everyone else. And I never really quite got into running, like the idea of athletics or anything like that growing up. Like, I wouldn't have even pictured myself doing the 400, 800, like the 1500 meters, like a standard ascent was like way too far for me. Until I started rowing in about year 10. And as part of rowing, they started to do runs. So I remember we had to do like a 3K time trial, and we had to do a warm up, like a 1K warm up. And I was like, I'm already cooked. Like, this isn't even a warm up. This is the run. Like, this is everything. So it hasn't always been running hasn't always been in my blood. It hasn't always been something that I've always been able to do. It's something that I've had to develop over time and find a passion in.
Yeah, interesting. As Neil knows, I am not a runner. Neil, however, is a runner, so I'm sure that the two of you have got quite a lot of expertise you can probably share with us about the mindset of running and a whole bunch of other things. But on that note, Patrick, I'm wondering, like, has running helped you to overcome any hardships in life?
Has running helped me to overcome any hardships? I feel like by being able to do these endurance events, by being able to do these events that challenge your mindset and challenge my ability to be able to go further, it's made other events in life seem less hard. So, like, to know that I can go to 100K, I can go to an Ironman, those sort of things have allowed me to go, this event right now isn't as hard as what it usually would be, or what most other people would find. And so by doing these sort of events, it's like really counterintuitive. It's almost like exercise. I've never thought about it like this, but the more you do it, the easier it becomes. And so this is like it with challenges, with discomfort, and with things in life where it kind of gets a bit hard. The more I found I put myself out there to do these uncomfortable tasks, uncomfortable things, it's really made all the other hard things in life easier in like a really counterintuitive way. I'm not sure if you guys have found that when you guys have had like a challenge or something like that.
I can see Neil nodding. Please share with us.
I've just finished a marathon in October, and I can so appreciate that the mindset. There's so many opportunities to bail on a training day. It's raining. My best friend wants to do something. My wife wants. There's so many opportunities, and if you want to succeed, it's a metaphor for life. If you want to succeed in life, you need to do what's hard and make it a routine, like you had said, Patrick, and treat it as an exercise and just keep repeating. Because when you do what's hard, the rest becomes easy.
Yeah, for sure. Like that's such a huge thing. Like the marathon, like amazing accomplishment. I'm not sure if it was your first or you've done a few of them. But that's a huge part, is that ability to just stop. Like you could potentially stop at any moment. Like there's no one that says you have to run this marathon. There's no point at any of that moment where you're like, yeah, I actually have to do this or else I might die or something might happen. At any moment, it's your choice to pull out the training, even in the race. It's such a big thing to be able to do. And such a great perspective to have on it. I've found that in some of the events is like the ability to be able to choose whether or not you continue or not is hard, or even just to choose to do the training or not has been a really powerful thing to kind of understand within that kind of framework.
So a question. So you had alluded to that in year 10 that you started to run, but what in God's green earth got you to decide that you wanted to do an Ironman?
Yeah, it's such a huge leap. I think like there was such a big period between rowing and when I started to run that like it was initially to just do a little bit of fitness stuff, and I was always trying to push myself, find something different, tick stuff off the bucket list. Like I'd come back from Europe, done that whole part of my life. Well, maybe it's not over yet, but there was a period of like 5 to 6 weeks where I went over there, was, drunk, trying to find myself. And I come back and I was like, oh, well, now what do I do? And I think someone at work was like, I have a marathon on my bucket list, but I'm not sure if she's ever done it yet. And so I was like, yep, I'll borrow that one. I'll start to do a marathon. And, after you turn up the dial, like a marathon only ends up leading to an Ironman at the end of the day, or at least that's how it was in my head.
And then that leads to an ultra marathon, right?
Yeah, exactly. The process. And then the ultra marathon leads to, I'm not even sure just yet, but there's always another level.
Yeah.
And the part of that, like, which was really interesting, was when I had this idea of doing a marathon, was that the marathon, I actually still haven't done my first official marathon. It's not been something that I've actually done and competed in so far. My first one's going to be on the weekend, the Melbourne Marathon. But up until that point, I've never actually done an official timed marathon. Like I did it as part of the Ironman, which was my first one. And so I really just jumped into the deep end at that point, which was very different to how most people decide to tackle the endurance events, like work backwards.
So what keeps you going? What keeps you going? It doesn't matter in any endurance event, something keeps you motivated and keeps you going, because you had alluded to it before that you could just quit. You could stop, see the pizza parlor on the side and just walk into the coffee shop and just wear your bib inside and sit down and have a tea or a coffee or a beer. What keeps you going?
What keeps me going? It's something that I'm still not sure if I've really figured it out. I think it's been a lot of internal stuff for me to prove myself and to prove something. Like there's an element of significance, or just the ability to know that I've done something quite big. It's a really interesting concept that I still couldn't quite understand, because I've known other guys that have attempted like multiple marathons in multiple days and like 24-hour runs and 48-hour runs. They've had a really different perspective on it. They've always had someone else in mind. Like they've usually raised it for charity, or they've usually tried to do it because of someone else who's passed away, or in memory of something else, a reason to bring a community together. And so they've been able to create an impact in that way. And so when you're in those dark moments, that's always something you could hold on to quite easily. Like when you're down, you're out. If I keep going, it's for them. You put your motivation and direction elsewhere. And that's been quite different to how I've been able to tackle it for me, because it's always just been like, people have asked, are you raising money for charity? You're doing something like that. I'm like, no, it's just kind of for me, like just for me to prove something. And so it's almost that proof, like me continually trying to search for that proof in what's possible. And to almost try and find that element of significance for a little bit, if I was to get really down into it. I mean, how would you describe you wanting to do a marathon, Neil? What was the driver for you to go and run that sort of distance?
I just wanted to see if I could do it. Curiosity, and to test myself and to really challenge myself to that only 1% of North America, of the 300 million people in North America, only 1% has ever completed a marathon. 1%. So by this little act, I'm in the 1%.
Yeah, sure.
And then I'm even in less now because I've completed 3. So I'm in the 0.0 something percent. And for me, it's all personal. It's all about how can I challenge myself? How can I push my body? And as a life coach, if I'm not if I'm not willing to push myself beyond what I find comfortable, I, in good conscience, can't ask my clients to go that extra step. If I'm not willing to do it and do it with them, then I find it just, I'm talking out of the side of my mouth, and I don't, and people, I believe, can sense when you're not walking your talk.
Yeah, for sure. I love that concept of curiosity, the idea of what's possible on the other side. And because that resonated with me without really even understanding that's almost what it was. And that's kind of it. Like, wouldn't it be interesting if I did X? Wouldn't it be interesting if I ran a marathon? Wouldn't it be interesting if I ran around an athletics track for 24 hours? Wouldn't it be interesting to know what's on the other side? I guess that would be like an interesting way to come back to, like with you, Sarah, when you go out and do a run or something like that for ourselves, there's an end goal. There's a picture in mind of, you get to the end of the marathon and you see that. It's like, yeah, I see myself coming across the end. When you're exploring like your artwork and your curiosity, is there a picture at the end in mind, or does it get figured out along the way?
Almost always, it's about the journey. Almost always, it's about what can I create, what needs to get out of my head, what I need to throw at the canvas, and it's just a way of decompressing. Now, whilst I couldn't relate to you guys who are talking about running, I've got a bunch of injuries that I struggle to walk. I'm using a walking stick at the moment. But what I did hear, and I reckon that other people who've got injuries could relate to, is that not giving up, or that, I'm sure that we've all been to a physio before, and, it hurts when we go there and we're told to do physio stuff when we go home. And quite often at the start, it hurts and you kind of lose that drive to do it. What I found was that by doing things differently in the house, like, especially like with COVID, like, with a lot of people stuck in their houses, I was a bit like, why can't you figure out different ways to do it? But I think it's just because I was used to doing things differently. Like I was used to, say, picking up an orange in 2 hands and using the oranges as something, as a weight, putting them behind my head. When I was on crutches for 23 months, my back looked brilliant. Like the muscles in my back were amazing because I was concentrating, because I was using my chair. I was doing things that most people wouldn't have expected from someone with a very badly broken body, but pushing myself to do things slightly different, that variety made a huge difference. And it was from that variety that my mindset changed. I was able to say, okay, well, if I can use an orange, maybe I can use a pineapple. Oh, wait, that's actually not comfortable to hold, but we can do something else. What else have we got? And again, it was just about, difference. And you can do the same, whether it's in art or in so many parts of life that, there's more than one way to skin a cat. That phrase springs to mind. Not that I condone like skinning cats or anything. Definitely more than one way to do something. Is more than one way to do something. So knowing that there is more than one way to do something, have you considered going down a different path at all, Patrick?
That's been like a really great insight. Is that I think someone asked me, like, what would you want to be remembered by? And even in my mind's eye, the idea of just being known as like an ultra runner or Ironman doesn't seem to be something that would sit well with me long term. Like if that's all I was remembered for, to know what I would like to be remembered for is a completely different question. However, like the idea of using this as a vehicle or an opportunity to have an experience, to be curious about what's possible, has been a huge part of that. Like the idea of not necessarily being known for doing these events, but knowing that that's just a part of who I am. That's something that I've chosen to do and experience. Like, how do you think about something differently to what everyone else kind of sees? Because you can't sort of think normally and decide to do an ultra marathon. Like it's not normally in people's conscious ideas. Like I think even for me, talking to a whole bunch of people that are doing this Melbourne marathon, some people have kind of quit, or they've just been like, no, I'll take the easier option. I'll go from the 42 to the 21 to the 10, because they can't grasp the concept or the idea of the possibility of doing what they wanted to do, or at least not right now. And I think this has kind of been a vehicle for me to go, if I can do this, well, then what else is possible?
Do you think that's got something to do with the lack of trust in themselves?
Yeah, I think it's a lack of ability to endure, to have like the faith that they'll find a way to make it work. I think that's probably been one of the beliefs that I've had going into each of the races, no matter if I was prepared or not, was that I'll make it work. Like I just had that undying, unwavering belief that it would happen at some point. Like there was not necessarily a time, but all I knew would be that I'd finish it. I'd go out there and do what I had to do in each of the events, no matter what logic that kind of took on.
So then as you're ending, getting towards the end of the race, I'm sure there is both a combination of emotional and physical pain. Which is harder to push through?
I think for me, it's the physical pain is harder to push through. When you say emotional, might be a different word to like mindset, because like the mental versus emotional is I almost like switch off the emotions. Like in some of these events, like there's been moments where I've probably come close to the end and going, holy shit, I've done this. Like this is crazy. Like in the last 2Ks, like almost sort of welled up with tears, but then not really know how to express that or how to take that in. But the mental struggle, the voices in your head, little questions that you ask yourself, they're probably the hardest thing to chat with and get over.
So with those voices, then probably giving you a bit of a hard time, are there also some voices that are like advocating for you, saying, look how far you've come, or words to that effect, or something different?
Yeah, for sure. There has to be, in order to be successful, there has to be something else available, some other thought pattern to be able to overcome the other one. Almost like that idea of what percentage of your brain, what percentage of your thoughts is positive or negative based on the outcome that you want. Like how, if I was to be successful, yeah, there are those negative thoughts, but then there has to be more positive thoughts within that, more positive outcomes to overcome those negative ones. And hopefully, like most of the time, the positive ones have kind of ganged up and they're found and been able to convert some of the negative ones. And, there's that little like devil and angel on your shoulders, or like good Patrick, bad Patrick, and how they kind of talk to each other has been a bit of a challenge, and how to speak to them, how to communicate with them.
I think for me personally, as a coach, and as an athlete, I go with the voices are always there, and they can either take you down or bring you up. And it is anytime I'm coaching someone and working with someone, and I think Patrick you're all in the same boat. It's learning to train our mindset to recognize that shit's going to happen. It's going to downpour. It's going to do whatever. And it's what you do in the shitstorm is how successful you're going to be. And that's part of mindset training, that anyone that's going to do anything that's so much out of their comfort zone has to, or not will come against that shitstorm of self-doubt, self-deprecating talk. And it is up to working with your coach and working with your friends and community to keep you motivated. As an elite performance coach, Patrick, and we're not talking about athletics elite performance, but we're talking about people that want to be in that elite part of the world, that really want peak performance in their life. What are some of the things, or how do you help your clients get motivated, stay motivated, get rid of that mind frick?
Yeah, for sure. I love to almost go so far as to say that it's not even about motivation. It's more about the momentum that you build. It's that concept of, in your car, motivation is like the spark plug. Yes, you need it to start with. However, you really want the momentum to build. And once you build momentum and the car's rolling, you want to find ways to make sure that the car doesn't stop rolling and keep building more momentum behind you. So there's I love a motivational video, just like probably everyone else who listens to this podcast. You've probably got your special person or your special someone on YouTube that you go to in that downtime when you need a bit of a lift. And so rather than trying to find motivation in that point, is how do I create back that momentum? How do I do the small things in each moment to build that momentum back, or to make sure that when the momentum's going down, how do I kind of stop the things that are pushing against the momentum to allow it to keep rolling forward? That was kind of really highlighted to me when I was doing like a marathon in a day. And that was like a concept I got off Bo Miles. And it was a mile every hour. And I think the first one was about 3. And so the hardest part about that was the stop and the start, like to run for 6 minutes and then stop for 54, start and stop. And so when you've got to start and stop within that, most people who are able to do a marathon would much rather go for 6 hours or 7 hours and just keep rolling on. But when you have to stop, start that momentum, that's a much bigger thing to overcome, because then it is a motivation, a willpower sometimes in those moments that you have to keep finding. So why keep trying to find that motivation when you can create that momentum behind that?
That's sort of reminding me of people who might maybe stop diets, or might start or stop exercise or something, that they've got that initial motivation to do something, and then something happens along the way where they've lost that motivation. When it comes to working with people, I'd like to ask both of you guys, do you find often the motivation is an internal thing or an external? Neil?
It comes to, for me, when people understand the why they're doing it, so it can be an external force or an internal, but they need to know the why that they want to do anything. And it's when you have your why and it pulls you. It doesn't. You don't have to drag yourself to it. Your why, when you have the right why, in my belief, in my opinion, it pulls you. It helps you. It's the anchor way out there, and it's just you're going to it. How about you, Patrick?
Yeah, that's such a great thing. Like the whole Simon Sinek start with why kind of perspective, and the idea of you need to have that purpose, that drive. And I'd almost like add to that in the sense that you've almost got to find what works for you, whether it's internal or external, knowing that there's a number of different highlight levels of, to do it for social media is like very external. Like that can only get you so far. It's probably not going to get you through a 24-hour race, but it might get you to get off the couch. It might get you to get that initial spark plug, that initial motivation. Then you've got to find almost like that internal stuff. Like if you haven't found any kind of internal motivation, it's really hard to just do it for other people. There's got to be a reason why like you want to do it in the first place, and a reason why there's another level of, okay, if it's just me, and that's probably what I've banked on a lot, is like, if it's just up to me, solely up to me, and I can do that. Although you kind of almost hear stories sometimes of, the dad saving their girl from the car, or something out there where it's all external. It's something greater than themselves. And knowing which one you need to motivate you at each time is really important. Really kind of understanding what is your personal preference, and knowing that maybe if you're really internally motivated like myself, to then maybe find an external motivation, someone else to help, or another reason might add to that motivation, the ability to move past what you need to kind of overcome. So I guess I'd be curious with you, Sarah, when you're doing kind of the painting and being creative, is it a motivation for yourself to do the object? Because I guess for us runners, or it's like you can push yourself forward. Is it like an internal motivation for you to express that on the canvas? Or do you have someone else in mind when you create pieces within that?
To be honest, I'm going to answer in a multiple kind of in multiple ways, because I do create for different reasons. As an example, Friday nights, once I get my daughter to bed, I will make candles. A lot of people won't consider it an art, but I've got to tell you, my house smells good. What I create has got beautiful crystals, bits of foliage on it, and it brings me joy knowing that I've done some self-care and that I'm in a really nice, calm space before I go to bed. On Friday night, where I used to be out partying all night and probably the next day and wake up, sometime on Tuesday thinking, oh, okay, got to do this all again and go. It's a completely different Friday for me now, and it's a really lovely, calming Friday. When people have commissioned me, obviously I'm thinking about them. What are their wants, their needs, their desires? What do they want out of it? Their colours. When I'm doing things for me, sometimes I use art as therapy, but even before I trained as an art therapist many years ago, I would just get my feelings out. It was natural for me just to scribble on paint or literally throw like darts at balloons on a board. That's really good fun to get your shit out. And gee, it makes an amazing visual as well. In an art therapy situation, though, there's a complete difference. If I'm there as a facilitator, I'm there. Sometimes I will create art together, whether we're on Zoom or in the same room. We may do something together as a bit of a reflection, but 9 times out of 10, it is the person I'm working that is creating, and it's up to them to go through that journey, to see what pops up, to see, Is there a problem that I need to work on? Oh, actually, when I look at that squiggle, it actually reminds me of my mother-in-law, and gee, it irritates me when she does this. Whatever the case is, and you get what you need to out of it. And what happens often in art therapy is we literally turn the page or what we're working on around, and when we do that, physically we see things from a new perspective, which then opens up the doors for us to see things in a new perspective. Makes sense?
Makes sense. That's something that I'd like to maybe explore even a little bit more. Is, I guess, for me, because we've got two different mediums, almost to say, is that like yours is very creative, whereas yes, for me, Neil is like that physical running type atmosphere. How much do you find is therapy for kind of healing and helping move forward, and how much is fun and enjoyment within that process? Because I guess for me, I've kind of used it at different times for different moments. I'd love to get your feedback on, or your perspective on that. Maybe Neil, if you had like a concept.
Absolutely. Running to me is the first 2 kilometers is, oh shit, what am I doing? The last 2 is, oh shit, what am I doing? Everything in between is, oh my God, this is pure meditation. Feet just going in front of each other. It is pure bliss. I am one of those sick runners that just has a smile on his face. And even when I'm crossing the finish line after 42, I am smiling because it is just, I'm going, holy effing whatever. I just did this. And I'm just like, whoa, I'm so pumped and proud. And it was just entirely bliss that I am one with myself and the world.
Yeah,
I
very
can
cool.
relate to that in a slightly different way. Again, getting back to physical injuries, I felt like that in the water before. After I had my back surgery, one of my favorite spots to go was to hydrotherapy, or just to be in the water, because it was a weightless environment where I could just float. I could, when your ears are submerged, you've got a bit of sensory deprivation happening. And when that happens, it's a beautiful opportunity either to enjoy the silence or to go within. And often what I found was that as I was starting to get stronger and, learning how to walk again and pushing through this hurts sort of situation, I would be patting myself on the back so much so that I would push myself to the point where sometimes I needed help to get out of the water, or I would get out of the water and then collapse because I'd overdone it. I'm curious to go, like, how do you know when you have got more in you, or if you have overdone it, whether it comes to training or in an actual event? Is there a difference, Patrick?
I'd say that there is. I'd say that the point for me that I realized I kind of overdone it was after like a karaoke night. And it's almost got something to do with running, but it doesn't. It was probably the first time I really felt like I'd overdone it. Was the morning after I'd been to karaoke with some friends. And what it was it was the part of the David Goggins challenge, which is like a 4x4x48. So you do 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours. And so I just kept pushing myself the first night, caught up with some friends between the runs. It was all good. The next day I kind of rested a little bit, did the runs. And so 36 hours later, after I'd sort of been running all day and all night, I covered probably about 70 Ks up until that point. I decided, one of my friends decided to go out. They decided to go out to karaoke and have a few drinks that night. I was like, can't really miss this. I might fit my running either side of that and kind of make it work. So I ran, still a little bit sweaty, tried to pat it down, caught up with some dinner and some drinks with them. They went to karaoke and I went running again. I was like, yep, they were still going by the time I came back after I'd done a run. And I came back and they were kind of closing up, dropped a few of them home because I was pretty much sober. And the next morning I was meant to get up in 2 hours. And I wake up and it's light and it's 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, oh God, like I've slept through this. Like I've slept through this this moment in time. Like I was meant to be up 3 or 4 hours ago, and I was like, wow, this isn't even a challenge. Did I fail? Did I not complete it? Like, how do I want to take this? And so, like, from that perspective, that was probably the point that I first knew I'd overdone it. Like, I'd gone too far. I tried to push myself from sleep and exercise, and I hadn't done enough to facilitate that outcome. But knowing sometimes you've gone too far, hopefully you take a learning from it. You take a value, because for me, it was good to know that I'd finally reached some sort of a limit. Like, it's crazy when I've done 24 hours and Ironmans and that sort of stuff. There was probably always something inside of me that was like, I could have gone another K. I could have gone another 24 hours. I could have done a little bit more. And that was kind of the first time for me I'd gone past that point. And it's a great question. Like, how do you find that point? Can you possibly know that you've gone too far without, like, your body physically shutting down? Like, that's it, lights out. Like, how do you know how far to push without pushing past that line? I think probably a thing that most people have is that idea that they leave a lot on the table, that probably people aren't even aware. That, like, the very David Goggins-esque idea of you only use 40%. People only have 40% of what's available to utilize and to give. And it's founded, like, in every marathon. I'm sure, Neil, at least the last 400 meters, you found this extra energy, this extra thing at the end of it to just keep pushing forward. So your body was leaving something in the tank. And I kind of found that in each of the events. And so, can you find the line? Do you know the line? Or is it just a case of towing the line? I'm not sure if you almost found that in any of your runs, Neil. You'd found your potential of what you were able to achieve.
There's all what I've discovered. There's always more than I think that I've given, and only once did I absolutely collapse and give in. But in life I've always known, even when I've collapsed and felt that I had nothing to give, I've always been able to stand back up and take another step. Even and just pick myself up and move on. And in my training for this marathon, I was supposed to have done a 30-kilometer run, and I was at kilometer 18, and my body just shut down. There was smoke in the air. I had nothing, and I willed myself, and I kept going, and I would push and push, and then there's this trigger in my body that I said, at what point in time am I damaging my body? And it's when I had that question, I knew I needed to stop to protect my body. My mindset was still going to go on, but I stopped. And as soon as I stopped, it was huge emotion for me. Huge, because this was pivotal into what I needed to do for my training. My training was on the line here. And I just stopped. And I'm like, I have to protect my body at this point in time. There's something medical wrong with this. This is not my mindset. This is not my willpower. And there's a difference, I believe, and I've witnessed it in so many people. They quit before they can quit. They quit too early. We get tired. I don't want to do this because it's the wrong day, or I don't want to do that. They quit even before they get started, which is, as you as an elite performance coach, you're teaching, I suspect you're encouraging people and getting people to go beyond what they're comfortable with, try new things, give them a new opportunity to be a better version of what they were 2 minutes ago, to be the best version right now. And then 2 minutes from now, be the next best version from themselves. And I think Sarah, even though she's doing a very artistic way, she's encouraging and drawing out things out of people that they would never expect, or that's beyond their comfort, to be able to get something that's beyond whatever they think they could do. Is that true?
100%. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I don't think there's a session where that does not happen, to be fair. And that's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing to witness, but even more so to experience. What a gift to experience something like that, where you can overhaul your thoughts by just stepping out of your comfort zone and just doing something slightly different. What have you got to lose by doing something slightly different? What have you got to gain? Well, for one, you've got an experience. You can tick that, a new experience off. And then, gee, what lessons can come from that? I know often when I've pushed my limits, I've got a lot of amazing lessons out of it. I know that, I've got friends who train for events, and I used to be a swimmer. I used to love swimming, and quite often I would spend time with my dad and the old fuddy duddies at the swim club. And, they'd be winter swimming across a bloody cold river, and they'd be doing all sorts of amazing things, these 60, 80, 90-year-olds. And there's me as like a small child, teenager, and into my 20s, doing it. And what was interesting that I noticed was that the people who were doing, they had their 100-meter event, wouldn't waste their time going across the pool for like a 20-meter sprint relay. And those that did, who got caught up in the, I must win, go team, go, a lot of them pushed themselves too much in that situation, that when it came to their 100-meter event, or when it came to whatever it was that was their A, then they sort of suffered because they'd pushed too early. And I'm curious if that, obviously you guys train quite regularly, right? Yeah. And got, if you're watching this live and replay, let us know if you're a runner or what sport you do and how often you train. So when you are training, knowing that you guys do big distances, do you do the small ones just to sort of pat yourself on the back and know that you can do it, know that you can do it in a reasonable time and push yourself? Or is there another sort of train of thought when it comes to your training? Patrick?
It's such a great question. The interesting part with the ultra distances is there's no set formula. There's no kind of rule like with a marathon that you could get a program off the internet and they're all going to be similar to an extent. And so within the ultra distance, how do you then challenge yourself within training, as well as create that systematic approach of just going out and doing it? And I feel like that's very dependent on where you are at mentally sometimes within the training block, within that process. There's been sometimes, I remember I had a whoop for a little bit, and I remember waking up one morning to go for a run, and it was sprints, and my heart rate was up. I was tired. I was fatigued. And it got to the point where I was doing 5:30 Ks, 5-minute 30 Ks, and it might have been 5-minute Ks, and my heart rate was just really high for that pace. I could go quicker and not feel as fatigued. I just couldn't believe it. I was like, why? And through that point, I kind of realized that was one of those trainings where it was just a matter of showing up, just being consistent enough to not quit then, but just to show up, and show up is better than not showing up at all. And then having that contrast the next morning after I'd had sleep, knowing that I needed the rest, that I was doing that 5-minute 30 Ks, 5-minute Ks, it was easier. I felt like I could push myself even more. And so that was the point where knowing your body and knowing what you need, you can push yourself in those moments, in those trainings, because to be on for 4 months, it's just not sustainable. That's the biggest thing, is to find that element of when do you just need to show up, to show yourself that you're committed, to keep that momentum going, and when do you need to push? When do you need to find that moment within the training? I'm not sure if you've had something similar when you've been training for your marathons, Neil, around that, and in terms of how you felt during those training blocks.
There's always days that are better than some, and some are phenomenal, and some it's just you don't want to go, but you just need to put those feet one in front of the other. And it's a metaphor for life. Sometimes you really don't want to do something, but when the goal is the big picture, your why is out there, you still need to go and do the work. You need to put the energy into it. There's lots of instances in life like that. But as a runner, one of the cool benefits that I figured out is my body does not survive on junk food. Like if I would just eat junk food, it would not work as well. So as a benefit, I don't know about you, Patrick, but I actually had to learn and listen to my coach on nutrition, on how to actually fuel my body properly. And that's a metaphor, once again, for any kind of coaching. That a coach will see the whole picture. I, as the athlete, I have a running coach. We had him on the show, Scott McDermott, and he helped me with the nutrition plan. He even talked about not a bathing plan, but for a soak in the tub afterwards. So on all of these things, the nutrition after training runs, it was a very holistic approach. And I just thought when I initially started, I want to go run a marathon. Like the naivety of it is mind-boggling. And for you to run an Ultraman is even, you had to learn so many other skills, or you had to hone your existing skills that much deeper.
Yeah, for sure. Like there's something that I'd love to touch on this, which is like almost quite contrarian to what everyone else kind of says, was that within that nutrition thing, that was never a big thing for me. And that's where like the performance stuff, like, we were talking about earlier, is like, imagine if I had dialed in my nutrition really, really well in some of these events, I could have done it. And like for someone to understand what I was eating, I had chocolate brownies, I had 2-minute noodles, I had like my Muscle Chef meal during my 24-hour run. And it was just calories in, just general trying to get it done. In the Ironman, I had like a better nutrition plan of, gels and salts and water, and trying to know what I needed to fuel myself from that performance perspective. But then it goes, what's your goal? What's the aim of doing this task? And for me, it was just the mental challenge. And I think for me, that's where I found performance was so big through mindset, was because even if the nutrition wasn't great, even if I didn't have the right preparation, like I had a bacon and egg roll and a coffee before I did a 24-hour run, which, almost this close, just to get the lungs moving, get everything moving well. And it just came down to mindset at the end of the day. Like for me, that's the most powerful point. Yes, like I'm not saying for people at home that chocolate brownies, 2-minute noodles is the thing that will get you to a marathon. That is the thing that will help you have your peak performance in your life. However, if you've got the right mindset, and you can tune other things as needed, unless you've got that.
Yeah, overcoming those things, in spite of all the terrible nutrition that you gave your body and lead up to that event, your mind was like, no, I'm here, I'm doing it. And you owned it.
Yeah, for sure. And that's almost like the power of it, is that the ability's got, I believe that the mindset's got the ability to overcome almost anything. Like it depends on your thoughts and what's going on, because you're never going to have the perfect race. You're never going to have the perfect opportunity. There's always going to be a challenge. There's always going to be something that pops up.
Well,
I love what you're saying, Patrick, because your body will work with whatever you give it. It will try its best to get you from A to B, because you want to get from A to B. And it will work. I absolutely love that, I put whatever in my body and my body responds because it's doing what it's supposed to do. And you're able to do what you're wanting to do because of the mindset. It's a beautiful continuation of a metaphor. When you put your mind to anything, you can accomplish anything, even with bad nutrition.
Yeah.
And it helps that you are 20 years younger than me, because when I was your age, I would have done the same thing. But when you're running at my age, you'll be paying attention to what you're putting in there, or maybe not, because your body will be so used to it.
Yeah. And that's always probably been the question I've almost asked myself, is since doing the 24-hour, I was so mentally drained, mentally fatigued afterwards that it took me a long time, just physically, but mentally, to recover from it. And so that's almost the question that I've asked myself, is that I've pushed myself for so long. Was it the fact that I didn't have the nutrition dialed in? Was it the fact that maybe I pushed my body too fast, too quickly, that kind of had that drop, had that aspect? And it's not something that I need to know necessarily as an answer right now, but something that to know for next time. Know that nutrition is, might be more valuable, might be something I need to focus on next time. However, there's no point focusing on nutrition, no point focusing on other things unless you've got the basics right, the things that will actually get you across the line sorted. And that's kind of been the perspective that I've taken on. Because, who knows? It could have been when I'm 27, when I'm 40, and I'm still doing some of this stuff. It might be a different perspective. It might be a different way. I was lucky enough, like my run coach at the time, not long after I did the 100K run, he decided to run 200 miles. He decided to run from like Melbourne up to, I think, Marysville and back. And he did that just for the sake of turning 50, just because, like, why not? And to understand his background and his events, to see, like, he still ate some mollies and still ate some, all this sort of stuff. But it was like his mindset of just getting it done, of being able to do that and push and find something else. Mind you, he was a massive talker. So he just talked day and night and just was always, whenever I see he's on the phone talking to someone, there was always a way for someone to work through those problems or those tasks that you go through.
And the moral of the story, and what Patrick has just perfectly shared with us, is just get out and do it. Get up off the couch and do it. But you did hear him. He said he had a coach, so he did look after the basics of understanding what he was going to do. And if you're going to try an endurance, find out experts, find out people. You can train on your own, but find experts. It's like anything in life. When you're wanting to go beyond your comfort zone, find a tribe to work with, get a coach. Make sure that you're and you know your why. Make sure that the goal is big, that if it doesn't scare the poop out of you, then it's probably not big enough.
Yeah, for sure. That's like such an amazing thing, is to have the people around you, the people that have been there before or know how to ask the right questions, the ability that know how to get something greater out of you than maybe what you can actually believe or see in yourself. To surround yourself with those sort of people and get out there and have a crack, try and do something. I think you almost touched on it without almost really knowing it. Like you said, with the run, the first 2Ks, I was like, oh my God. The last 2Ks, oh my God. And when I said, like, show up consistently, it was in those mornings I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to get up. I didn't want to keep going. Was like a 2-minute rule or a 5-minute rule to go, if after 2 minutes, 5 minutes, I've given this a crack, I can come home if I really, really want to, and giving myself that out. And then knowing that 99% of the time, you're going to keep going because you've already built the momentum. You've already got the endorphins going. You've already got the positive feedback in that loop to be able to move past that point. And sometimes you just need the right people around you to drive you forward and create those ideas and perspectives.
That is reminding me of about 15 years ago, hanging out with some friends in Victoria, which is a few thousand kilometres from where I am now. And we decided to go get pizza. We all jumped in multiple cars to go get pizza, expecting it was probably going to be around the corner. It wasn't around the corner. It was a few hours drive. We got there, and like you guys were talking about before, about the first 2 kilometers and the last 2 kilometers, where are we going? After such a long time sitting in the car, is this really going to be worth it? And then, obviously, Australia's got some pretty phenomenal scenery, so that was an amazing part of the journey. We all got to connect and share some amazing stories. And I'm going to tell you, the pizza at the other end was bloody fantastic. And it was a really memorable and unique experience. So knowing that, Patrick, with our time coming up, is the stuff that you offer your clients, is that a memorable and unique experience?
Yeah, for sure. One thing for me that's always been a massive thing that I've kind of touched on is the experience of it. Just doing it for the sake of the experience, to understand the value that you can get out of doing something. It's almost the reason why I've done it. It's what I love to be able to give my clients, is the ability to enjoy that experience, enjoy that moment, because it's the moments and the experiences that we kind of create in our lives that add up to how we experience it and what we make that mean. The experiences that you have in that moment, whether it's a challenge or not, allows you to move forward, move past that, and creates like a memorable moment. Like one concept for me is the idea of like when I'm 90, whether I'm in a nursing home or not, or like in a house somewhere with an amazing view with family and friends, is what are those experiences and memories that I want to look back on? Do I want them to have an amazing memory? Do I want it to be positive? Do I want it to be emotional? Do I want it to have something that I can come back to? Because I think there's like the quote from Marianne Williamson, that the biggest regret of the dying is to not live a life true to yourself, to not have those experiences. Like, I'm sure that the only memories that you have are the experiences that you've enjoyed the most. They might not necessarily have been easy, but when you have an amazing experience, like an amazing memory. There was a point where I think for me, where it came back to was when I was, a few years younger and, out exploring and talking to other guys and girls out in the real world. It was that moment where one of my mates just walked up to a girl. I was just like, I love you. Like, just had this amazing moment. And we just started laughing and talking, and it went into the ends of the night. And, you get their details and you contact them later. And it was like a year or two later, I remember talking to her, and she was like, oh yeah, I just remember that night. I remember that moment. I remember that feeling. And that's what's been the cool thing for me, is to be able to create those memories and experiences that you remember long after you've been in that moment. They're kind of been the key things I would love to have my clients experience, so they can look back on like the sessions and the times and go, wow, that was something meaningful.
Is this the best way for people if they want to learn more about you, Patrick? Is this the best place to get them, or?
Yeah, this is the best place to come find me. Just on my Facebook.
Yeah. But you also are in Instagram apparently too.
yeah. On the Instagram, on the Facebook. Like, I'm everywhere without being everywhere. It's that case of, having all the different channels and different feeds, whatever platform's easiest to connect through for you. There's probably a chance I'm on it, and looking to share some of the stories and the experiences.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, we're at that part of the show where it's time to say goodbye. And I really want to thank Patrick for taking the time out of his running schedule and his coaching schedule and his busy life to share time with Sarah and I. And I'd like to leave with just a few words. Whatever you do it from a place of love and have fun with it.
Patrick.
Awesome. Yeah, it's been great to chat to you guys. So many different explorations. You've got to sometimes just make the choice, make the time to step up, do something different, do something for yourself, do something more and be better. That's what it is. Get better each day.
Thank you for sharing us. It's been lovely to have you as a guest. And guys, if you're watching this live or in replay, please put some love in there, get some comments happening. We'd love to hear your feedback. And to what Patrick was saying before, I believe, we're creating our own life's masterpiece. Yeah. So why not go out there and create memories today that your future self will look back on and go, yeah, that was awesome. I did it. I designed the life I desire. I'm feeling good. And on that note, I'm going to love you and leave you. Go out there, create those conversations and those memories. We'll talk to you next time on Uplift. Take care.